Eventually, I was homeless just after a few days and not having food, not being able to pay for the hotel room I was staying at. Uh, I think I was on the street for about a week. And I ran out of the money that I had on my debit card, and finally found a sign or found some cardboard, wrote a sign, need money. And that was one of the most humbling experiences I ever had, that
Mm.
I had to swallow my pride and hold up a sign begging for money.
Hmm.
Um, but then again, there are also some people that are mean spirited and would give me a bag of food, but it'd be full of dog poop, or it might be an empty bag full of trash. That it was um, a McDonald's bag or some type of fast food bag, but it's full of trash in there. So that was also kind of heartbreaking, that people would still kick someone while they're down to treat them or mistreat them, even though they're already lower than you.
Welcome to the Beautifully Becoming community. This is a sacred space for honest, faith-rooted conversations that encourage healing, inspire growth, and help you step into the person God is shaping you to be.
Hello, and thank you for joining us today. In today's episode, we have an amazing guest. Oh my wow. He is a phenomenal guest. And today we're going to be discussing, sharing thoughts, looking at personal story, and Gallo has an amazing story that he's going to be sharing with us today. And I just really want you listening to please sit tight and enjoy every bit of this conversation. And honestly, Gallo, I want to officially welcome you.
Thank you so much, Noble. I appreciate coming on. I am honored to be able to share this story because there's not many opportunities that I have to be able to talk about my past, at least in this aspect.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So listen, the audience wants to meet with you, and I just really want you to tell us, who is Gallo?
Oh, I'm a human being just like everybody else here. That's probably one of the biggest messages that I've learned from all of my experiences, is that no matter what, we're still all human, and we should try to do our best for each other. It kind of falls back, and I wanted to touch back a long time ago, back around 2005. It was my first real experience where I had a conversation with a homeless person. And just like most of us, or most people, usually kind of avoid them. You see them and you're like, oh man, they're going to ask me for money. Just let me get away from them, whatever. And this happened to me on the way inside of a convenience store or gas station in Houston when I was an apprentice electrician starting out. And this guy was walking towards us, and we're just trying to avoid eye contact with him. But the way he was walking towards us, we were going to run into him. It was my journeyman, so my teacher as an electrician. We were walking in, and we couldn't avoid him. So he comes up to us and he says, hey, look, I'm not going to ask you for money. I have money. Digs into his pocket and pulls out a wad of cash. And he goes, that guy in there, he won't let me get inside the store because I stink. Here's $20. Get whatever you want. I just want a Snickers and a Diet Coke. That stands out to me, because $20 Snickers and a Diet Coke. I mean, I'm going to probably remember that for another 40 years. So we thought it was some kind of TV show prank or something. So we just like, okay, sure. We go inside, we buy the Snickers, we give him back his cash, and we give him his food. And he's like, wait, I gave you money to buy your stuff and mine. No. Here, he gave us a 20 again. He gave us each of us a $20 bill. And he goes, I know I smell bad. I know I'm homeless. I'm not asking you for money. I make enough money out here begging, but people won't see me as a person. He won't let me inside. And we were just like, yeah, sure. Okay, whatever. And just ignored it, walked away. I was curious as to how he had a wad of cash, but I talked to him, and the short story was he was always parked outside or standing outside of a major church in Houston. One of the bigger churches, and as soon as one person gave him money, every car that would pass by would give him money. But it was usually that first one that was already have troubles. And because churches have a lot of services, at least in Houston, there's a 6 a.m., 7 a.m., a 9 a.m., 11 a.m., 3 p.m., and a 6 p.m. So he went to one of those that had a lot of services. So he'd get them coming in and leaving. So he was making a lot of money. He had enough money to be able to stay in a apartment. He he made enough to where he could still not work, but still have a place to live. And he said he just cannot live inside anymore. He's not used to that. Being inside closed spaces scared him. And that didn't make sense to me. It's just like, you're crazy. There's something wrong with you. About 5 years later, I got divorced from my first wife. We got divorced because I was a cheater. I found out a few months after that I am an intercourse addict. But at the time, it was just me being a man and, well, you know, I take care of my family, I take care of the bills, so I should be able to do whatever I want, right? And if I don't get sex today, well, I'll find it from someone else because, you know, I should be able to have sex every day if I want it. And my wife, you know, as many women, not always in the mood, not every day. And I didn't communicate with that with her. I didn't have that conversation with her. I was just being a child, essentially, even though as an adult, I was being childish in my behavior and expecting things without communicating them. And so it would always be a problem with us. We either didn't have sex or she'd be mad at me because I had sex with someone else. And it was just an endless cycle. And eventually she got tired of it. We got divorced. So in the divorce, I had agreed to give her the house if she paid off my truck. Simple compromise. And after a few months of checking on her, making sure she made the payments, I stopped checking. And eventually my truck got repossessed. At the time, I thought it got stolen. And yeah, that was scary because it had a lot of my tools. It had the stuff that you carry in your vehicle all the time, you know, personal items, tools, whatever. And I made a police report that my vehicle was stolen. And I got arrested for making a false report because it turns out that it was being repossessed. I should have known because the bills weren't paid, but nobody wanted to listen to me. Hey, this is part of the divorce decree that she's supposed to make the payments. I thought it got stolen. I was keeping up with it. And it turned out that, you know, after a while, she just stopped paying them long enough for me to get the vehicle repossessed. Well, eventually they let me out of jail, but I was working out of town when the vehicles were repossessed. So I grew up and was living in Houston, but I was working down near the Texas-Mexico border. So while I was there and kicked out of jail, no vehicle, no nothing, you know, there wasn't Venmo back then. Back in 2010, there wasn't Venmo or Cash App. The closest thing was PayPal. So it still kind of felt awkward to ask friends, hey, can you PayPal me $50 or $100 and get a bus ticket to make it back home? But even I made it back to Houston, then I still had bills to pay, but I didn't have tools. And even if I could find a job as an electrician again, I would still need my tools. And it was just a whole bunch of things that I just sat there in my mind, just worrying and constantly thinking about, but not doing anything about it. Eventually, I was homeless just after a few days and not having food, not being able to pay for the hotel room I was staying at. I think I was on the street for about a week. Yeah, I ran out of the money that I had on my debit card, and finally found some cardboard, wrote a sign, need money. And that was one of the most humbling experiences I ever had, that I had to swallow my pride and hold up a sign begging for money, and seeing the look in other people's faces that I would give to homeless people, trying to avoid eye contact, trying to not see the homeless, trying to treat them as an invisible person. And occasionally someone would give me, you know, a handful of change or $1 in change, $5, whatever. And it probably took me a good 2 days to make about $20, enough to be able to get some food, but not enough to get a hotel room, not enough to find a place to clean. So the money I was getting every day wasn't enough to live on, or not got enough. It was not enough to get a place to stay, but it was enough to get food. And sometimes people would give me bags of food. And at first it was kind of, in a sense, gross for me, because here I am getting people's leftovers that have bites into them, and I'm trying to pull off the bite parts, or you know, dealing with cold food. But eventually your hunger gets to you, and that kind of pride, and little by little, my pride and my ego started chipping away, that I wasn't too proud to say no to food, or say no to cold food, or say no to any type of money. But then again, there are also some people that are mean-spirited and would give me a bag of food, but it'd be full of dog poop, or it might be an empty bag full of trash, that it was um, a McDonald's bag or some type of fast food bag, but it's full of trash in there. So that was also kind of heartbreaking, that people would still kick someone while they're down to treat them or mistreat them, even though they're already lower than you. And this was probably 2 weeks that had gone by, no shower, out in the sun in Texas, smelling bad, no longer being able to go inside of stores to buy anything because my smell was so offensive that the store owners or the managers or whoever's behind the counter would always kick me out because I smelled bad, because I was dirty. And so the next chip at my ego was having to use a restroom outside. And there's a difference between having to use a restroom outside when you're on a ranch where you live in the middle of nowhere, where you know that no one's out there looking at you. But when you're inside a city and you're trying to find a bush that has some type of trees or coverage that nobody's going to see you use a restroom, that's a different experience. And then not having toilet paper, so you're not able to get as clean as you're supposed to. So you're tearing off clothes to use that as toilet paper and having to leave a mess there because there's no way to flush it. It's just there out in the open. Fortunately, though, because I still had my debit card, any cash, dollar bills or bills that I got, I would deposit into my bank account. But I would keep the change and use that to be able to buy things or basically buy food. And while I'm out on the streets, there's kind of the way it is kind of in high school, where there's kind of cliques where people are their own friend groups and are not very open to let other people in. But when you're homeless, it's just a different perspective, a different vibe. They're very protective of their possessions, but they're very open with sharing their food. If one person has a cupcake and there's 10 people, they'll figure out a way to cut that into 10 pieces to share it. When it comes to food, homeless are more than willing to share with someone else, because we know what it's like to feel hungry. We know what it's like to feel that starvation feeling in our stomach. And so even if it's just a bite, it's better than not having anything. And I was able to make a friend because they realized that I didn't have some of the problems that other homeless people have, that I didn't have a chemical addiction or a drug addiction or an alcohol addiction. So one of the guys that I met, he had a house that he inherited, but he had already been on the streets. So he just lived in the house until the lights got cut off, all the utilities were cut off. And he was just living in the shell of this house until the sheriffs would kick him out because he hadn't been paying taxes on it. So he was just staying there until he got kicked out eventually. But in the meantime, he allowed me and some other homeless people that he was friends with to come stay there. The only thing that he would charge for rent each night was either 2 cans of food or $5, whatever you can come up with, or a combination thereof. Sometimes, you're short on cash, but you've been there a while. He'd still let you come in. And so if you didn't have food, then it'd kind of be your job to clean up after everybody, clean up all the tin cans after all the food was cooked. Pick up all the trash, whatever, just kind of keep it tidy so it doesn't seem like people are there. So all in all, I was on the streets just under 4 months and finally had enough money saved up by putting the money in the bank account with my debit card, and was able to get a hotel room because my ID was still valid. So I got a hotel room, washed up, shaved, and bought a ticket back home to Houston.
Okay. But just kind of listening to you and just kind of hearing your story and knowing that this is really legit people who used to live in a home, and all of a sudden, based on the situation that happened in their life adversary, life challenges, life difficulties, have found themselves in a situation that they did not even bargain for. Like 5 years ago from when you shared the story, you wouldn't have ever envisaged that you would be in that situation, right? So one of the questions I just wanted to ask you was basically, what happened to your sex addiction at that time you were homeless?
At the time, so I wasn't aware that I was a sex addict at that time still. So I was still an intercourse addict, and it wasn't eye-opening, but what's the word? So I use my sex addiction or intercourse addiction. I'd sleep with women to feel better. If I had a bad day, if I felt sad, if I felt bad, if I didn't get a promotion, if someone hurt my feelings, anything to make me feel good, anything to make me feel better, instead of having a conversation with someone, instead of talking about my feelings, writing a journal, or anything else that's a more healthy way to deal with my feelings, I would just go find a woman to have sex with. Either I would reach out to someone I'd had sex with before, or I would just go out to a bar, find a woman to sleep with. And if if you're not watching this, if you're just hearing, I have a bad boy look. I look like a typical bad boy that most women generally like. Not all women, but there's a lot of women that have a preference for guys that have a bad boy look. So it was easy for me to exploit that. I knew that I had that appearance. So I would use that to my advantage and just sleep with a woman. I didn't care how attractive she was. All she had to do was just say yes, or basically not say no. And I would just use that just to feel good. Even though it was just 5 or 10 seconds of a good feeling, it was worth it for me just to get over or bypass the feelings that I was having. So I would either box all my feelings in until I could have sex, or I would hold them in until I could find someone else. Because sometimes I would hold out, oh yeah, I know Maria that I hooked up with a couple years ago was good in bed and we had good fun. So let me go find her. And if she fell through, or she was married or had a boyfriend or whatever, then I would go and find someone else at a bar. That was kind of the way my mindset worked, is like the only thing that mattered in this moment is to feel good. And the only way to do that is having sex. So it was difficult when I was homeless because I still had my looks, but I smelled bad. My clothes were dirty. So my only other option was with other homeless women. And usually, I think or at least in my experience, what I was seeing is the homeless population is about 7-to-1 male to female. So there's not that many females around. And the females that are there are usually very old or they're very young. And those are usually like runaways, but they're not homeless for a long time because they'll find someone, they'll kind of like take them in. But so my only option was essentially older women, and I would push through it. And once or twice a week, I'd hook up with one of these women just because for me, it was to feel better. For them, it was, I never talked to them to find out why they agreed to it, but I still feel that they wanted that emotional connection or just have human touch, because it's rare. We're seen as invisible as homeless.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I just really, wanted to kind of like ask that question because it felt like probably, did this, addiction kind of, I'm just feeling like this addiction kind of subsided a little bit while you were homeless, right?
A little, yeah. It only subsided because of my lack of options, not because I wanted to or I chose to ignore it, because that would have been the most important time for me to deal with those feelings. But the only way I could deal with them is having sex. But I can't have sex because I smell bad. So it was kind of one of those things, fine, I'm not going to have sex because I smell bad. It was kind of similar to when I was in basic training in the Army. Don't want to sleep with other men. So I had to sit it out for 2 months or 9 weeks to not have sex. But that whole time, it was kind of on my mind. So similar with being homeless is that I wanted to have it. I just couldn't, or not as often as I wanted to.
And then continue from the story. So what happened next?
So I came back to Houston, was able to get a job again, working my way up. I had a couple of friends that gave me old hand-me-down tools to be able to go back to work, and started working again. And in that, somewhere in some point, I had made a female friend, that originally I met her on a dating app, but something about her just made me think of her as like a little sister, that I wanted to look out for her, take care of her, not take advantage of her, not sleep with her. And I don't know what it was that made me feel this. I just know that she had a sexual interest in me, but I kept it at bay, just like, hey, no, I'd rather stay friends with you than sleep with you, right? And it hurt her feelings as well because, she was on there to date. And so over time, we were able to have a conversation about the whole thing that happened there. But in our friendship, I kind of helped her stand up for herself. And she was going to what's called Celebrate Recovery in the US, or actually worldwide. But in the US, it's kind of a big thing for addicts, for people that have any type of addiction. So it's Christian based and held in churches across town, any denomination. It's not one specific one. And they can help you with sex addiction, alcohol, drugs, codependency, love addiction, food addiction. I forgot what other ones, but just any type of addiction that are common, that there would be some type of AA or some type of anonymous group setting for. It's kind of an all-in-one. So when they show up, they kind of have some type of Bible reading or someone that shares their testimony, what they've gone through. And then everybody breaks down into male and female groups of whatever their addictions are. And so she would break down and go to the codependency and love addiction, where codependency is what it is, but the love addiction is they're in love with the idea of being in love. So they'll put up with a bad relationship because as long as they feel or believe they're in love, they'll put up with it. And so that was kind of her problem. And for me, I really didn't have anything I could associate with because I didn't do drugs. I didn't drink alcohol that much. And all the other things that were there, well, I'll just go to the sex addicts group. And while in there, most of the guys in the group would talk about their porn addiction, or they would talk about voyeurism, or the excitement they would get from talking to sex workers, that they were able to talk to women in a dirty way, essentially being able to talk to them. Yeah, you like doing this, you like doing that. And that's what they got off on. They never paid for it, or they said they never did. I don't know what their honesty level was there, but I do know that they would share various stories, and most of it was not actual intercourse. It was just sexual things that they would talk about or had a problem with. And so my reaction was like, oh yeah, I have a problem with pornography too. And it was just to fit in, just to be in the room, because I didn't see having sex as a problem. For me, that's normal. That's how I saw my measure as a man, that the more women I'm with, the more of a man I am. And so I would go to this because after the fact, my friend, she would end up staying there for hours after the service was over because she was helping clean up. She was sitting there talking to someone. And even though she wasn't interested in the conversation, she felt bad telling someone, hey, I got to go. She would sit there and talk to someone she didn't like talking to or didn't want to listen to because she had a problem saying no. So my job essentially was to be like, hey, we got to go. We're going to go see a movie right now, and it starts at 9:15, so we got to get out of here. So it was easier for me to go to these things so I could be there right when it was over versus trying to show up at the right time, because she was so afraid of offending people. She wouldn't pull out her phone in front of someone and send a text because she would see that as disrespectful. She didn't want to disrespect the conversation. So there were times before I started going that I would sit around the parking lot waiting for her to be done and then have to go inside to try to find her and try to be able to pull her out. But by this time it's already 10:30. And so that's the reason I started going. One of the times that I was there, this guy gave his testimony about being a drug addict. And when he was talking about using drugs because he felt bad, he had a bad day, needed to feel better, he had an argument with his wife, all the reasons he gave for drugs, I was hearing, I use drugs. I was hearing, I need sex because. And it finally like opened up my eyes. Holy crap, I'm a drug addict. I'm a sex addict. I'm an intercourse addict. And in my mind, sex addicts were just some made up word that celebrities would say. So that way, oh, I cheated on my wife because I'm a sex addict and I need another chance to work things out with her because I don't want to pay alimony. Like in my mind, it was just an excuse celebrities used to not get divorced immediately, like a one last chance type thing. But in that moment, I realized, no, this is a real thing. This is a real problem. And I didn't know how to deal with it. And when I found out that I was an intercourse addict, I started looking for ways to get therapy. Fortunately, as an electrician, I had health insurance. So through that, I started going to see a therapist through my network. And it was frustrating because when I was talking to the therapist, it felt like they didn't know what I was going through.
Mm.
It felt to me that they read about me in a book, like, oh yeah, this is how we fix this and this and this and this. It just felt very disconnected. That they had the clinical words for the things that I did and why I did things, but they didn't seem to understand me. And that kind of felt like, even though they knew what I was doing, they knew on paper what I did, it just felt like they didn't know me. They didn't understand me. So that didn't work out. I didn't put enough effort into that. So I started going to Sex Addicts Anonymous. And there, at least to the few that I went to, it was kind of like, I call it white knuckling, where they were just holding on and they weren't having sex, not because they were trying to be better or worked on themselves to be better people or to deal with their issues. It was more of, I can't have sex. I'm not going to have sex, so I'm not going to do it. And it was just constantly repeating over and over that they're not going to do it. And I don't want to disappoint my sponsor. And it's more about what other people would think of them rather than improving themselves. Right. And so I was just like, I can't do this. Like, I'm not learning anything. Yes, I know I have a problem, but how do I deal with it? And so eventually I went back to Celebrate Recovery. And there I started working in a small group setting for therapy that they have, a study group that kind of makes you go back and kind of relive your life, kind of like a diary, essentially asking you questions about when was the first time you remember X, Y, or Z happening? How did you feel about it? How did you deal with it? And a lot of things were essentially me not knowing how to deal with hurt feelings or bad feelings, because as a man growing up, I only know happy, sad, and angry. Anything more complex than that just doesn't make any sense. It's just, well, what are you talking about? I don't get shame. I don't understand anxiety or annoyed. On paper, yes, but I didn't feel those feelings. I felt angry, happy, or sad. That was it. So working through Celebrate Recovery, I was able to finally understand the deeper problems that I had. And it helped me deal with sex more healthy, but I still didn't understand how to live that type of life, be sober in life, essentially, because other addicts like alcohol or drugs, you just stop using that. You don't do it again. But food addicts and intercourse addicts, you need food to live.
Absolutely.
And sex is kind of part of a healthy relationship. You know, whatever type of relationship you have with a partner, you're bound to have sex at least once a month, once a year, whatever is comfortable for you, but it is still part of a relationship. So how does a sex addict navigate that in their lives? So that was something that I struggled with for a couple of years.
Wow. Wow. So just, kind of like, tell me how did you finally, get over, this feeling of being a sex addict? And I just really want you to, again, once you touched on this, just touch on the difference between being a sex addict and just being, just a regular kind of man that has this desire for, sex, because it's basically more like, the men's thing. Men always have the sex drive, more prone than women. So what's the difference between being a sex addict and just having that, having a high, what's it called?
Sex drive or libido. Yeah. So that's kind of something that a lot of guys ask me too, is like, well, how do I know I'm not a sex addict? And usually it can be boiled down to, would you have sex with someone you have no physical interest in? And would you be able to finish? Most guys, yes, they want to have sex all the time, as often as they can. But usually they only want to have sex with women they're attracted to. I had sex with any female. It didn't matter to me as long as I was able to finish. That was my goal. Now, that was usually the case whenever I had a bad day. And anything that bad happened to me that I didn't want to deal with, that's the route I took. When I wasn't chasing the high, I wasn't trying to feel better about myself and just kind of like in quote unquote normal mode, then yeah, I would seek women that were physically attractive or physically my type. And that was usually my day to day. Like I wanted to sleep with whatever woman was attractive to me. If I didn't get sex that morning from my wife, or if I didn't get sex the night before from my wife, then well, it's been 16 hours. I need to get it in. I need to find somebody. Whereas most guys, they'd like to have sex that frequently, but they'll hold off for a better reward. They'll hold off for a more attractive woman. And so I think that's the distinction, at least for me. Everyone is going to be different depending on how their sexual addiction manifests themselves with them. So,
So how is it now? What does it look like now? Did you find therapy, or did those therapy thing work? Like,
yeah. So with Celebrate Recovery, with working in the small groups and the step studies, I realized that I don't have to have sex just to feel good. I don't have to have sex to feel better about my day. I can have other healthy ways to do that. One of the bigger ones is just have a conversation. Hey, I didn't like what you said. That hurt my feelings. And usually it's with your partner, at least with my partner, that I'm going to have those conversations with. If someone else bothers me, then I can, coworker or subordinate or a boss, makes me feel bad or says something that hurts my feelings or makes me upset. Instead of seeking sex to feel better, I can rationalize, okay, they're lashing out at me because they have a problem. They're not talking to me as a normal human being as they should. So it's a little bit is maturity, and a lot of it is just understanding that I don't have to fall back into my bad self or my bad mode to feel better. That it's not important to always feel good, because it's impossible to be happy 24 hours a day. It's just not humanly possible. We don't have the chemical. Our bodies couldn't handle being happy all the time. Literally, we can't be happy all the time. We can't be depressed all the time, or it makes us into a downward spiral, or an unhealthy chemical imbalance. So, as either situation is just kind of find the medium balance to be kind of in the middle and seek those highs and avoid the lows. So that's the lessons that I took from having all the therapy that I went through.
Oh, that is so amazing. I just really, liked the way you, responded to the question. And I just want you to really kind of like, speak directly to somebody who is probably listening and probably homeless, or just really kind of like, talk to them and just really give them some, some words of encouragement or whatever you want to share with them, basically.
Yeah, if you're homeless or you're on the verge of being homeless, don't be too proud to ask for help. If you're on the verge, that's gonna be the bigger problem. If you're on the verge of being homeless or almost going to be homeless, pride is, I think that's a societal thing, or it's also an ego thing as well. It could be a little of both, but your pride is going to cost you so many things. Being too proud to ask for help, being too proud to say I'm hurt or I'm sorry or whatever, not just homelessness, but all over things. Pride hurts us all. And in the end, if you can swallow your pride to ask for help, to reach out, and oftentimes people don't even hear when you ask for help. You can literally say, I'm hurting, I don't know what to do. And people are like, oh, well, you'll be fine, or you're my thoughts and prayers. And so you actually have to ask for help. You can't just say, I'm hurting, I need help. I need help with X, Y, and Z. I need my light bill paid. I need a place to stay. I need a shower to use because whatever, my water's turned off. So if you're on the verge of being homeless, that's what I would suggest for you. It's like, don't be too proud to ask for help, because once you're on the street, it's almost too late at that point. If you're on the street, if you're somehow homeless or semi-homeless, where you're living in a shelter or you're couch surfing with friends, don't wallow in your depression. Don't just sit there thinking, oh, the world sucks, there's nothing for me to do. You have to help yourself as well. You can't just rely on others. You have to stand up and do some of the work yourself. There are a lot of entities and individuals that are willing to help. Actually, I'm friends with a guy on TikTok. He goes by Just Nate with the K, and he helps out homeless. He doesn't give them money, but whatever they need, he'll go out and buy it for them. Unfortunately, he's in Reno, but there's other content creators out there that are in a lot of major cities that go out and help homeless people, and just whatever they need, if it's food, shelter, a hotel room, socks, clothes, tents, whatever they ask for, they'll help them out with that. So It's just trying to find those resources. And again, sometimes when you're homeless, some homeless people don't want to come back into society. They just can't readjust. That for them, being out in the streets is more normal for them than trying to be in a house, trying to be in a job and doing what everyone else does. But that doesn't mean that they're not human. That just means that they're not used to living by society's norms. And of course, you got people that have mental health issues or drug addiction issues or any type of addiction. So seeking help any way that you need before you fall off and end up being homeless is important.
Absolutely, absolutely. I just really want to touch more about your skills at this point, and I want to know, like, what are those things that inspired you to develop interest in, knitting and building custom mechanical keyboards?
The knitting, one of my aunts taught me when I was 7 or 8. It was a bus ride from Mexico City to Veracruz that, it's about a 3-hour drive. And so she was knitting. And I said, well, I'm bored because this is way before the internet, way before cell phones, way before Game Boys, any type of toy. So all you had was magazines, comic books, or newspapers. That's all that you could entertain yourself with. And of course, what kid cares about magazines and newspapers? And comic books, well, these are Spanish comic books. No, I only read English, whatever, do. So it was just something to do. So she taught me how to knit, and I knit a scarf, or actually I knit about a foot of a scarf because I kept messing up and had to go back and fix it. But that got me started in that. With mechanical keyboards, is just kind of my nerdy side. I like playing with computers and working in the terminal, working kind of like the Matrix type, Neo type stuff, where I make things work on their own, or hit a few key presses and back up things or make copies of things or whatever. So yeah.
That's really amazing. And just, when I was reading your bio, you said something about, in your podcast, we're going to get to your podcast shortly. You said something that you share both, tragic and humorous, like, stories of your life. And we just want you to, like, kind of like share, like, something funny or something humorous.
I almost got shot and killed by a Texas state trooper for sleeping with his daughter and me running out. At the time, it was scary. But now in hindsight, it's just kind of funny that I ran out with a pair of pants and a sock and jumped in my car and drove off. But, funny things, not that many. I mean, there's a bunch that have happened, but I can't anything that stands out right now.
Oh, wow. And I just really want you to, like, talk to somebody, basically. I know we've talked a little bit about that aspect, but somebody who feels like, oh my God, whatever he's describing right now, this is just me. This is what I feel like, So just really kind of like speak directly to somebody.
Yeah. If you feel like you're only having sex to feel better, sex, I think, should be more of an expression of commitment with your partner. And it doesn't have to be a monogamous commitment. That's a whole other conversation. But it should be an expression of pleasing each other versus of you just trying to ignore something or mask something or cover something. It's important to realize what the underlying problem is. Because sometimes you can say, oh, I'm just mad. But some people don't stop and think, why am I mad? Am I mad because my coworker yelled at me? Or am I mad because my coworker yelled at me in a way that reminded me the way my aunt yelled at me when I was a kid? So that's the thing of having the therapy, being able to realize, okay, I'm not mad at my coworker. I'm not mad that they yelled at me. It's the tone they use that remind me of something else that hurt me when I was younger. So those are the type of things. And it's difficult. It's difficult to, think when you're angry. It's difficult to think when you're having a surge of emotions, jealousy, anger, rage, all of those are natural emotions. The way we express them, that's the bad thing. That's the things that gets us in trouble in society. And so whoever you are out there, I just want you to know, first of all, I love you. You are worthy of love. Everyone is worthy of love. And if someone hasn't told you that today, you are worthy of it.
Absolutely.
On the other side of that, I want you to know that there are people out there that are going to be willing to help you. It's not easy to find them, but it's worth it.
Wow. That is so profound. That is so profound. It's really worth it. And I just want you listening, if you feel that way, I might not be the best person to reach out to. I will be putting, Gaius contact on the show notes. Please reach out to him. He would be the best person that you can reach out to, because this is something that he practically walked out of. So I will be putting his contact on the show note. Please reach out to him.
But as Noel mentioned, if you want to reach out to me on my website, Sucias, SUCIAS.xyz, I have my phone number you can text me at. You can call, but I don't answer calls. I don't have the number saved. So just text me. You can email me, or you can find my socials on there: Reddit, TikTok, and Instagram. If you want to talk, if you want to complain, if you want to vent, or you have an episode idea you want to talk about, or whatever, I'm usually available. If I don't answer, it's because I'm asleep, but I will get back to you. I appreciate any message I get. And if I can help someone, ideally I like to help one person a day, but not that many people reach out. But I'd love to help at least one person a week.
That is so amazing. That is so amazing. Yes, before I ask you one question that just came to mind, I just want you to give us dating relationship.
As far as relationships, I think the most important thing for any relationship, or particularly romantic relationships, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband and wife, cohabitation, whatever, I believe that your job is to make each other's lives easier, add to each other's happiness.
Absolutely. And just really kind of like tell us the lessons you learned throughout all of this life's journey that you've had.
Cool. The biggest lesson is that we're all human. The biggest lesson is that no matter what goes on in life, it's important to realize that regardless of skin color, where you were born, language, whatever, we're all human. We all deserve love.
Absolutely. And something just came to mind. Somebody's probably listening and saying, mine isn't sex addiction. Mine is just addiction.
Yeah. If you have any type of addiction, try different types of groups. You can search blank addiction anonymous, or search for Celebrate Recovery and your city name. So if you have any type of addiction, find this place. You'll be able to go there. They're usually 7 days a week, most large cities. In smaller towns, it might just be Fridays and Saturdays, maybe. I don't know. But just seek the help that you need.
Absolutely. And this brings me to the signature question that I always ask. You probably touched on it a little bit, but what would you tell your younger self?
What would I tell my younger self? Oh, that's a tough question, because on one hand, I think I'm a better me for living the life that I did.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, it would have been an easier life if I'd gotten the advice of, your value, or my value, your value isn't based on how many women you're with. Your value is based on your integrity and your word. And if I had learned that lesson 20 years ago, actually 26 years ago, I would have saved myself a lot of problems.
Absolutely. Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you so much for really sharing your great wealth of wisdom. Deeply, deeply, deeply appreciate it. Thank you.
No, thank you for having me on. So it was great to be able to just be myself, essentially. So I appreciate you, and thank you so much, Noel.
Thank you.
Thank you for spending this time with me and the beautifully becoming community. I pray today's conversation reminded you that your journey has meaning. Your process is sacred, and God is still at work in you.